Hey friends, welcome back. I'm excited. I am actually so excited. I'm about to see Insidious, The Red Door. If you have not watched all of the Insidiouses lately, I just did a rewatch and honestly, you probably should at least have a recap, and lucky for you, I've done a recap video if you want to check it out. It condenses everything you need to know about the first 4 Insidiouses into one video, going through all of the demons and the storyline because it intertwines so much. And I totally forgot this until I did this rewatch. I was actually just gonna rewatch it without doing a video, but as I started watching, I'm like, man, I have to start writing notes because it's very confusing. They all happen out of order. What happens with the main characters, like Lin Shaye's character, is very important to know, and what happens to the Lambert family is really important to know, particularly because this new Insidious, which is actually directed by Patrick Wilson, involves them going back to the original storyline. So it's important to know kind of where we left off. Insidious 5, The Red Door is a horror mystery thriller. This one directed again by Patrick Wilson. We actually pick up with the same actor, so the same actor for Dalton, who is much older, as we follow the Lamberts once again as they go into the further, deeper than ever before, aiming to put all of these demons, entities, whatever you want to call them, to rest for good. They have been foreshadowing this film the entire time. When it says for good though, the last one was called The Last Key, so we'll see, but they really have been foreshadowing the Red Door, and when I rewatched it, I noticed how much they refer to the Red Door and how it's such a mystery, and even in one of them, Elise, Lin Shaye's character, says, I need to figure out what the Red Door means. So I'm actually really excited now I've rewatched them to get back into this franchise, into this universe. I'm a huge Leigh Whannell fan, and I know a lot of people don't have high hopes for this film, but I think I've got my expectations settled, and I just really enjoyed, I don't know if you guys remember the first time you saw an Insidious film. I really enjoyed the first one. I remember seeing it in the cinema by myself. It was one of the first horror movies I actually went and watched by myself, which is so crazy now to think about. And I was blown away by how intense but gritty it was. And it's just very different to any other, I guess, horror universe. It really does not care too much about the physical world, and it dives deep and intertwines, and yeah, I'm just ready to see what's gonna happen. So, with all of that said, let's go find out. I wanna know what your expectations are though. Do you think I'm gonna be disappointed? I'll let you know whether it's worth your time and worth your money to go and watch this one this weekend or, you know, in the upcoming weeks, or if you should just wait to stream it. Let's go. Some of you guys know that Gromit is unwell right now, and I will do a video updating you on his situation. I'm gonna go to the movies, buddy. I'll be right back, okay? Bye. Hi friends. Hi my friends. Wow. Okay, I have a lot to say about that film. It was okay. I wouldn't say that I disliked the film, but it definitely was a very strange entry, which makes sense because this one actually has a different writer. I believe it says that the story is by Leigh Whannell and Scott Teems, but it definitely felt a little bit different, and I don't think it's the directorial debut of Patrick Wilson that made it feel so different. Let me explain, and I think this is actually so perfect for a spoiler free because this will give you a really good idea of what you're getting yourself into. So the film does follow Dalton, one of the kids. So cool. They had both sons, Dalton and Foster, same actors as when they were kids, which I think is really cool. It follows Dalton as he goes to university, college. What I thought was really interesting is the storyline that they choose to, or like the career path and how they choose to change his kind of personality or how he evolves as a person. He is is an artist, so he's into drawing, which is meant to kind of take off when he was a kid, and drawing all of the, you know, into the further like creepy kid drawings. I just love the idea of a creepy kid, well, I guess he wasn't the creepy kid, but a kid in a horror movie who was doing drawings. It's just so cliche. And then he turns into an actual artist from it. I just thought it was really funny. But he goes to university and he has a really strained relationship now with his father, and it is about him learning about the further again. That's basically the rundown, and although I've said so little, I have to tell you that there is not a lot going on in this movie. I love the Insidious franchise. I actually really do. I think it's really cool and it has such a different feel. But what is really interesting about this one is we don't get any of the twists and turns that we usually get in Insidious films. You don't learn in detail any new information per se, and it's just kind of going along for that ride with Dalton. So I feel like it's a very strange entry, because as much as it is meant to take place years later and it's following the same family, and you need to kind of know different characters and different objects and stuff for it to have a good payoff, it doesn't really intertwine so much in the other films that makes that worth that energy. I hope that makes sense. It's like this whole idea of setting up these characters all these years later, but then you don't get to find out any really cool or new information that will go back into the Insidious, I don't know, Hall of Fame, the Insidious, the franchise lore. I was kind of saddened by that, because every other film has such a distinct aspect that really plugs into that lore and changes a lot of the meaning of the other films, and I feel like this one just didn't. It's kind of like a standalone film, but then a film you also wouldn't be able to watch as a standalone film, because the characters have already been in 2 other films, and it just would just be very strange to watch by itself. It's the 5th film in a series. It's a very strange film to just pick up and watch by itself. And in saying all of that, when I say there's not much that happens, the climax for this film is super, super odd. Again, a lot of the Insidious films are very twisty and turny, and sometimes they have twisty and turny. Sometimes they have 2 or 3 twists within the same film, reveals about entities and all that kind of stuff. And the film moves very slowly, and at the start, it feels like a gradual kind of pace where there's jump scares and all that good stuff. Obviously, I adore a good jump scare, and this film does have plenty of jump scares. It's an Insidious film. Of course it has to have jump scares, but I was hoping that after we kind of get through the character set up, we're going to get into some more creative and complex storylines, and it's going to weave and bob and all that kind of stuff, but it just really feels like it slowly gets to a moment, and then you realize that's the climax of the film. So it felt like kind of like a short film, but a long stretched out one about just one weird aspect about these characters, and that is really concentrating on the relationship between the son Dalton and his father Patrick Wilson, Josh. They have a very different relationship in this film, and I'm not going to touch on any of that because I think that's good for you guys to figure out. I thought it was a good focus, and at the end it is a very straightforward and well-intentioned meaning, but the way it got there, I just thought that the audience needed more to chew on, more to digest, more to look at, and yeah, I just didn't feel that exciting feeling when things are unraveling and you go, oh my god, that's that. Spirits are haunted by other spirits and all that good stuff. It just felt like the beginning, and there was no real turn of events and adventure in it, which made it at times feel quite slow. But there are some good parts. The acting in this film is phenomenal. 100%. I think Rose Byrne really, for so many reasons, she brought it home. She's not in a lot of the film, but I think Patrick Wilson is phenomenal in this film, as well as, of course, Ty Simpkins, who plays Dalton. But there's also a friend that he makes in university, Chris, played by Sinclair Daniel. She is kind of like the comic relief, and it does like toe on like joke after joke after joke, but she was bringing something extra and something different to the movie, and I have to admit, I laughed a couple of times at her jokes. I thought she was good, and it was fun to see Dalton kind of interact with someone else in a new location. The thing I really loved about this film was the cinematography. Patrick Wilson, you know, obviously working as the director, but with the cinematographer, they bang on with making this blend in seamlessly with the other films. It looks like an Insidious film, which I love. It's that dark, gritty kind of texture, and because they got to play around with art design, as in him going to art classes, I felt like that was like a really fun aspect that they could play into with the textures and all that kind of stuff. And it is very spooky in that regard. It makes sense because a lot of this film plays on, you know, past things that have happened in their family, and they need that footage to match and look the same. But I just very much appreciate that all the Insidious films look exactly the same, because you can't say that about every franchise. I mean, you can't even say that about Scream. So in that regard, it looks like an Insidious film, but it just doesn't have as much meat as I hoped it would have. Overall, do I think it's worth seeing in the cinema? Honestly, if you like a jump scare in the cinema, it does have plenty, and I did jump. I jumped once. Plenty of people screaming. It does have like very spooky aspects in that regard, but I actually think that you might be able to watch this one at home, which is so evil of me to say. Of course, I recommend always seeing horror movies if you can at the cinema, because there's no real meat and huge epic twists and turns. I just feel like it could be fine at home too. Don't tell anyone I said that, okay? I'm gonna give this film a 5 out of 10. That's really annoying to say. I don't think it's awful, but I've been just rewatching all of the other Insidious films, and it just isn't up to the same caliber, and I normally rate those ones between a 7 and a 6, and this one definitely, if I did half scores, of course I would do like 5.5, but it definitely is a step down, and I just don't feel right even rating it at the same as number 4. I know a lot of people didn't like number 4, and if you didn't like number 4 because you felt like it was doing too much, which a lot of people thought that, you might actually enjoy this one better. You know, not everything is for everybody, and I always hope that if I didn't enjoy something to the full capacity that someone else did, and I'm sure other people out there will. For originality, I'm gonna give it like a 2. And for scare, I'm going to give it a 6. There are definitely some cool jump scares. I just wish that there was more meat in this film. My brain was ready to work and it was ready to put together the puzzle pieces. But unfortunately, if you know the story, which you kind of have to know to watch the film, you're already a step ahead of what's going on. And I just wish there was so much more. There's so much more to play with this franchise. Like, I hope this isn't the end for Insidious, because there is so much more to play with, and they've set up different things that I really hoped they touched on this film, and they didn't. And I just think that there's so much more to explore, and I'm begging them, give me more answers, because I felt like I just had more questions after this film. But I hope that you guys enjoyed it more than me. Let me know if you've seen Insidious The Red Door down below. I would love to read your comments. Let me know what you score it as well out of 10. Your originality score and your scare score. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. If you'd like to support what I do here, you can head over to my Patreon. I have bonus videos there, and I'll be putting up my spoiler chit-chat thoughts for this film over there. But until then, stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends. What's that noise?